Hello and welcome to my channel. I think it's only fitting that you see what I actually go through with some of the pieces that I cut for various different reasons. The arrow is going to show you where the mistakes are, the things I have to clean up and fix. And this is all due to my error and my lack of patience and taking my time getting this ready and cutting it. When you see some of these spots, some of them are normal, but it's still stuff I have to deal with. Here, you're going to see where my drill holes were not straight up and down. I rushed through the drill holes, and that was the result of doing that. So, there's a lot of things I can do, and I want to show you some of the things that I do to take care of this so the piece looks halfway decent. These are sanding sticks. They're not necessarily sticks, they're stiff foam. They come in various grades, 80 grit, 120 on up. I can use my Dremel with various different tips. This is a Dremel I use to drill my holes. I also have my oscillating sander with a smaller head on it for my woodworking pieces. And I have just sandpapers. This is belt sanding paper. It works great. I can cut it to whatever size I want. So this is the tedious part, and I wanted to show this because as a new scroll sawer, almost everything can be fixed. There is a few points of no return, but I think everything can really pretty much be taken care of after the fact. Here I'm using the sandpaper that I cut into strips so I can get into the smaller places, and it works out well. I would like to apologize though for my hand being in the way for a good part of this video, but the bottom line is you can tell what's going on and you can see the difference in the outcome of these holes. This is why I should have taken my time during every phase of this project. Drilling the holes, I should have taken my time, and especially cutting. I rushed through this pattern, and I should not have done that. I should have taken my time, and I wouldn't be doing nearly as much of this that I had to do. This took me almost 2 hours. Although this is sped up to 2 times the speed, still in all, there's a lot I filmed that I didn't put in this video. As you can see, I'm using my scroll saw table to clamp this down and a piece of wood on top so that the clamp does not embed its little footprint into the project. There were several things when I made this cut that I wasn't happy with, aside from me rushing through it. And I think it's the blades. I'm still struggling with blades and which ones to use and etc. And while this particular piece does look really nice, I'm not negating that, but I am somewhat of a perfectionist, and a lot of what I see I didn't like, especially on the back side. Because I'm not putting a backing on this piece, it's going to be standalone. The back side pretty much does have to look as good as the front for the most part, and that's where the drill holes came through. Most of the bad cuts I was able to fix with the sandpaper. I also used some files, really small files, to take the bulk of some of the mistakes out, but otherwise it really was just tedious. While I have been complimented many times on how quickly I'm learning and the scroll saw patterns and the cutting, and this is the reality of my progress. In my mind, I shouldn't be making these mistakes anymore. I've been down this road for 6 months now, and I should know better. But again, that's all part of the process of being new at a craft that many folks have been at for years, and still make some errors here and there and have to fix them. Now, even though I'm fixing everything with the sandpaper, my overall take on this particular cut, I'm not happy with any of it. Meaning, it could have been done so much better. And once again, I will do this again, this particular pattern, because the second time you learn the lessons, and so the second one's going to look so much better. And I also want to use a little bit better quality of wood. This is kind of soft, so I still have concerns now of how it's going to finish or take a finish, but we'll see. I do think I'm going to start showing more of this, not necessarily as a separate video, but I'm going to start showing more of this on my weekly videos, maybe at the end of a cut, so that you can see firsthand some of the things I'm going to have to fix before I complete any project. And the successes where I have very little to do. Now here I'm doing the drill holes. I'm not necessarily going to be able to get all of it out, but what I'm trying to do is visually eliminate it. In other words, nobody would know it's there unless they really scrutinize it and look close through those areas. So I was able to accomplish that. I'm still not happy with it, of course, but a Dremel would have been nice to use on here, but my concern with the Dremel is it cuts away too much material too fast. These are the files I was telling you about. Now I was able to fix a lot of the round holes. I was able to fix some of the longer straight areas to shape them a little bit better. These little files are just wonderful to work with. Actually, better than sandpaper. And that's because it takes off more material, not as much as a Dremel would, but much more quicker than the sandpaper does, to get me through this process a little bit more efficiently. But again, even with these metal files, you got to be real careful, because you can actually cause more problems that you have to fix. So I learned that on a few projects back. Yes, I did. I created more problems with the files that were almost unfixable. But this section here that I'm filing down, where there was a hole, there's a very small piece of wood between that and the cutout behind it of the little teardrops. So I had to be really careful of how much material I took off, so that I didn't break through to the teardrop on the other side. I do have to work on my round holes when I make them. Wasn't happy with really any of them, but I was able to clean them up enough and make them look crisper than they did originally. But it is what it is. And I am aware that most people, your average consumer, will never notice any of what I see. Will never notice a majority of what I'm pointing out to you. But it's me. I want to have something that's worthy of the dollar amount somebody's going to pay for a project that I sell. I have been on a cutting binge since October, and I have not really finished a majority of the cuts I made and the patterns. They're unfinished projects, meaning I cut them out and they're put away in a crate. I'm going to be working on those over the next month, because we're going to have a town-wide garage sale, and I'm going to put them out and just get rid of them, because the tote is full and I'm not displaying everything in my home, so I need to do something with this stuff while I'm learning. So I may be throwing in some videos here and there over the next 2 months of finishing the wood projects. For example, the wolf from a couple of weeks back. I started staining it and I walked away because it's just not my forte. I'm a very artistic person, but I'm very insecure in that ability. I know if I just do it, it's going to be fine, but you know, that's how it goes sometimes. So those are some of the things I'm going to want to share with you as well. There is a craft part to scroll sawing if you want there to be. Painting them, staining them, adding highlights in different areas to give it a little more depth or volume. Or I have a hard time covering the wood with paint because I'm so in love with wood and grains and colors. I hate to use anything that takes away from the actual wood itself. Some of the ideas I had in mind for this project and what to make a base out of and what kind of base I wanted to make seems to have changed a little bit. I've got to put a finish on this horse. And so what I did was I saved the outside pieces that I cut off, and I'm going to sand them to the same grit that I sand the horse to, and I'll try different finishes on that as scrap to see what looks good. I want something that's going to bring out the color of the wood, but also make that horse design pop when you look at it. Now, I will be filming the process of testing different finishes on the scrap wood. I don't know necessarily whether that'll make it into a video or not, but I'm still now uncertain of what type of base I want to use. I have a lot of things going on here outside of this hobby, and so I'm getting distracted and I'm getting a little bit frustrated because what I had in mind at the very beginning of this project, I'm not seeing it anymore. I'm not, the vision is kind of, I don't know, fading, as they say. But I'm gonna keep going. I want this to go from start to finish, which I don't think I've ever really done, so that you can see the whole process from start to finish instead of just cutting only every week. Now I have to keep looking at this and really seeing what's going on, and I'm feeling the wood, and I can feel the grain. That tells me this might be pine, by the way. And I want that to be a smooth finish. But in general, I'm going to go to the next phase, and I'll end up in the house in my hobby room to finish up the rest of this, which of course is more sanding. Now, I did want to use these sanding sticks, and I started out with them. I used an 80 grit here. I wasn't happy with it. I needed to use the files for some of this. I gave it a good try with the sanding sticks, but because they're softer, you can't really apply a whole lot of pressure to it. So as you can see, I ended up using the nail file, or the steel files instead. Now this roll of sandpaper that I'm going to use and cut off a piece, I have no idea what it is or where it came from, but I absolutely love it. It is like the best sandpaper, and I found it in some old stuff from my mom, or just from years ago, to be honest with you. But what I'm doing now is I want to soften the edges of the horse so they're not sharp. I don't necessarily want to use the Dremel and really round them over. I just want to make it soft to the touch. A lot of that is just feel. You just sand until you feel that it feels right. I didn't necessarily have to do everything. I wanted to do the parts that people would touch if they were to touch it. This is a Steve Good pattern. Steve has been in the scroll saw industry for years and years and years. This is his pattern, and many of the patterns I've done are his patterns. He watched my video last week when I cut this horse. He offered some excellent sound advice on things I can do to help me along on my journey, which I very much so appreciate. But I was floored that he actually complimented me on the finished product. But once again, I see what nobody else sees, or I scrutinize what nobody else scrutinizes. But it really gave me a good boost going, okay, I am progressing. I am getting better at what I'm doing. I just have to keep going, utilize the advice that I'm being given by people that have been in the industry a lot longer than I have. Steve Good, Wichita Blundell. There's actually several others that have, and the names are eluding me at the moment, that have left comments as well. And so it's just a matter of staying with it and not giving up, and know that it will get better each time you do it. I'm starting to see the progress of all my sanding. I'm getting to the end. I'm just smoothing out some of the rough cut edges around the outside perimeter. While there was nothing real bad there, I just wanted it to be smooth. There was a few little rough spots, and I have to say that whatever this sandpaper is, it works wonderful. It really does a great job. One thing I do want to say though is I had to be careful on the legs because of the way the grain is going. It would be very easy for me to snap them off. So I could not apply a lot of pressure, and the one leg in particular at the back, I had to be extremely cautious with because of the way the cut was, or the one in the front. Doesn't matter, one of them. If I get to it, I'll show you. But it's just all those little things you learn. I've learned that on other projects where I snapped off a piece because I pressed too hard when I was sanding, and I definitely didn't want that to happen here. Again, it's all fixable, but I just don't want it to be something I have to do. Once I got done with this part, I started sanding the front with the, by hand, and I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to smooth it out the way I wanted it to. I could feel all those ridges. So I got out the oscillating saw, and I changed the head to a small one. Now this one has 10 speeds on it, and again, you have to be extremely careful. You can't just go jamming on it. I see a lot of guys that do that on their videos, and again, they've been doing it for years. They're comfortable doing that. I'm not so much. So I have it on the lowest speed, and I'm using, I forgot what grit, 220, 240, and I'm not even pressing hard. I'm just lightly going over the top of that. It took a little bit to get the legs to smooth out with the grain, but I was finally able to accomplish that and get a good smooth finish with this saw. Yeah, it was that front leg that was the problem child. Because of the way it's cut in at the top, that was a very weak point, and there was a little bit of movement when I was sanding throughout the course of this sanding deal, and I was, wow, I was afraid I was going to pop it right off. The only thing on the backside that I didn't care for was the color of the wood for some reason. It just was a little strange versus the front, but all in all, it should look all right. I hope this part of the process helps somebody that may be going through some of the same struggles I am. And you may even have better, different ideas than I do on how to fix stuff or prevent it from happening in the first place. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. please give it a like, stop back, and we'll see what we're up against next week. Maybe I can actually finish this project. On that happy note, God bless and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Take care.